The first case of a global plant virus was reported 3 years ago, and it began to wreak havoc on the majority of our ecosystems. Serious autoimmune diseases are caused by eating food that has the virus in it, and the loss of plant life has reduced the amount of oxygen in the atmosphere by 10%, which has led to an increase in the number of natural disasters worldwide. People are beginning to believe that the planet is doomed as a result of the failure of the world's most renowned research laboratories to discover a cure. Dr. Stephen's Project Gemini, based on 2 ancient alien artifacts that paleontologists have determined to be 4 billion years old prior to any life on Earth, is the only remaining hope. Stephen's team has duplicated and copied the extremely tough materials that make up the sphere in the engine. With the help of this engine, they have built a ship that can fly by itself and find a suitable planet to terraform. The sphere is used to make life, and it works because the team has finally decoded dozens of commands. It also shows that aliens made life on Earth. To create Earth 2.0 using the sphere in the solar system TESS, which is several hundred light years away, a group of doctors and military pilots will be traveling. Amy, Stephen's wife, does not want him to go on this mission. She still goes to the base on the day of the launch to try to stop Stephen from leaving, but she doesn't get there in time and has to watch how the ship leaves the planet. An unusual crack on the alien sphere appears as the vessel leaves the atmosphere, indicating that they may not be the only ones there. The ship uses the technology of the alien engine to open a warping portal that lets them jump across the universe. However, as soon as they cross the finish line, the systems display the following error. They are not at TESS yet, rather, they are in an unknown location. Stephen attributes this to engineer Peter, claiming that he entered the coordinates incorrectly and has been relieved of his duties for the time being. Later, as Stephen lies down, he keeps thinking about Amy and also about the first time he activated the sphere when he saw a strange humanoid form that vanished quickly. After that, Stephen requests that the group attempt to set the jump trajectory to determine where they are. However, this is impossible due to the fact that all of their data is corrupted, making it appear as though they move between the 3rd and 4th dimensions. Peter, on the other hand, leaves his bunker and uses one of the security cameras to examine the sphere on his own. The computer announces at that point that the repair airlock has been opened and that an unknown object is approaching. The sudden sight of a frozen Peter floating outside shocks everyone. Dr. Leona refuses to believe it because she has known Peter for 8 years and knows that he wasn't that kind of guy. However, Dr. David believes that Peter ended things because he couldn't live with his mistake. She is told to take over Peter's responsibilities from now on by Stephen, who scolds her for crying over the man who has destroyed humanity. David later says that he almost ended things when his daughter died, but he thought he could be useful instead. He feels useless once more now that the mission is over, but Stephen assures him that they will find a solution. A planet made of volcanic rock is discovered by the ship at that exact moment. They would only require breathing masks because the outside environment isn't aggressive and there is no oxygen in it. Stephen is eager to land because he believes it is the best option for carrying out their plan. However, Captain Ryan stops him because he says that they haven't properly examined the planet yet, so Stephen is recklessly jeopardizing the crew's safety. However, Stephen doesn't care and reminds everyone that he is in charge of this situation. Officer Richard will remain aboard the mothership while the team will descend in a shuttle. They have to use the braking thrusters to slow down their fall as the shuttle gets closer to the planet and encounters a storm that is very aggressive. Their fuel will run out and they won't be able to return, but it's their only hope of survival. Stephen has a dream about the time he gave Amy a bracelet made with a particular part of the old sphere, trying to connect the 2 things that are most important to him. As the crew passes out as the shuttle hits the ground, the crew awakens a moment later and immediately resumes work. Although the shuttle has not sustained any significant damage, they are stuck here due to a lack of fuel. They came to stay for 4 years, so Stephen doesn't see a problem with this. Even if they didn't land where they wanted, they can use one of the huge caves as a dome to launch the sphere into. A strange substance falls off the walls in the shuttle's secret corridors at the same time. Richard investigates the other rooms in the mothership and discovers this goo as well as the missing camera. The crew successfully activates the sphere by transporting it to the closest cave after everyone has donned their proper gear. They then return to the shuttle to begin data collection, but Ryan interrupts their work by announcing that the station is under martial law. He shares some files that Richard sent him while the doctors were working in order to explain his decision. It's a video of Peter recording himself while he examines the circle, so he can't be blamed for botches later. He finds something moving in the shadows when he opens the engine door. It suddenly jumps on him, kills him, and then throws him out of the ship. The shape of this creature cannot be captured by the camera, but Richard explains that he has reviewed all of the footage and has determined that the alien has been with them ever since they left Earth because it traveled inside the sphere like the Trojan horse. Although it is no longer aboard the mothership, it has traveled to the planet with the shuttle, probably as a result of the failure during the jump. Richard is able to follow it because the alien interferes with the electromagnetic field, which is why the recording is bad. David abruptly interrupts the discussion because he has noticed something odd with the system. The program they uploaded is not the one that is running on the sphere. Ryan prevents Steven from returning to the sphere, accusing him of keeping secrets and reminding him that he won't let him lead any longer. Ryan reveals that Richard also discovered footage of Steven seeing that strange shape on Earth months ago. Given that Steven knew there was a possibility of a threat, but he didn't tell anyone, Peter died because of him. Steven rushes out of the room, offended by this accusation and thinking back on all the effort David and he put into this project. Because David was still grieving, Steven wasn't sure if he should have come with them. However, David persuaded Steven that he was fine and wanted to make the Earth a better place so that no other children would suffer the same fate as his daughter. David is invited to sneak out with Steven through the airlock to check on the sphere after Steven meets with him. Steven convinces David to disobey Ryan by bringing up his daughter and the planet's future. David doesn't want to disobey Ryan. When they get to the cave, they notice that the settings have been changed and the sphere is making an alien life form faster than it is making life on Earth. David's pleas for Steven to leave and discuss the situation with everyone are ignored, and Steven immediately begins setting up the sphere. David fires a warning shot to try to get Steven to move when he sees on their radar that the alien is getting closer. They notice the alien has already entered the cave before things get out of hand, so Steven responds with his own weapon. Both men begin to flee when Steven grabs a piece of the sphere to take with him, recognizing the creature's increasing proximity from its shadows and noises. When they leave the cave, they finally get a full view of it, but they manage to get back in the shuttle and close the airlock before the creature can attack them. David criticizes Steven for putting their lives in danger, but Steven tells David that the sphere is more important and that he will shoot again the next time. Ryan then shows up to scold Steven as well, and Ryan punches Steven when he says they'll have to use force to stop him. The computer issues an alarm to notify the crew that the integrity of the module has been compromised. Leona goes out of her room to look into the problem, finds a lot of slime in the hallway, and then is suddenly pulled back into a different area. Frank is the one who informs her that the alien has entered the lander through a hole in the low deck. The two carefully make their way to a hiding place in the lab, where breathing is becoming increasingly difficult. A strange sound can be heard coming from behind the plant units after the lights suddenly go out. Frank pushes Leona out of the room because this means the alien is here. As Leona runs down the hallway, she can hear Frank's screams as the alien kills him. Ryan yells at Steven for bringing the alien back with him after Leona tells the rest of the team what happened in the control room. The creature broke into the ship through a hole in the hull, damaged the generator, and the cameras aren't working, so they can't see the rest of the ship or talk to Richard. If they are unable to locate the creature, their only option is to make their way to the backup generator and reconnect everything. This would be extremely challenging, so Steven offered to go because it was his fault. Steven carefully navigates to the generator while brandishing his weapon, regaining the communication system. Steven is warned by the team that the alien is near him and that they can now track it, but as soon as Steven tries to leave, he starts hearing those noises. Fortunately, Ryan thinks quickly enough to use a metal rope to drag him back into the control room. The group then collaborates on a strategy to smoke the alien out of the ship. Leona rushes to hide in a different room as the alien emerges, opening the lab door and the airlocks as Steven waits outside to play bait. Richard tries to start the engine to kill the alien, but he can't because the creature is interfering with the signal as it quickly moves through the airlocks. Richard regains access to the engine when the alien emerges as Steven flees for his life and Leona arrives to assist him. The creature tries to get to Steven, who is being dragged inside by David, but the fire doesn't kill it, so Steven and Leona run back inside. David gets hurt by the tentacle of the alien as they close the door, keeping the creature's limb inside. Ryan closes the airlocks while the beast returns to the cave, allowing the others to reseal the hole. The team finds Frank's body a moment later, and Steven thinks about Amy once more, while Leona decides to end things on her own out of grief. She had tried to persuade him to stay by saying that she was working on a vaccine and, more importantly, that she was pregnant. Despite this, Steven stayed because saving Earth was more important than his own life. Steven brings the tentacle to study it, while David goes to the lab to have his wound bandaged. He learns that the creature is a biorobot made of the same material as the sphere, indicating that the sphere has always wanted to make these beasts. David is told by Steven that the tentacle has infected him with a bacteria that has a very strong defense against it, and that his blood now holds the key to making a vaccine to save Earth. The lights go crazy as soon as Steven cuts through the tentacle, and he recalls the image he saw back on Earth, indicating that the alien is a transponder and that this is how his race colonizes planets. Steven decides that they need to kill the alien and get the sphere back to its original settings, but Ryan locks him up in the lab and tells him he's going to jail for putting everyone's lives in danger. David agrees with Ryan when he says that Steven only wants to play hero and never cared about humanity. Ryan also points out that lives can be lost. Steven is brought back to her most recent argument with Amy by this, in which Amy accused Steven of having a savior complex before throwing away her bracelet. Richard confirms Steven's theory when he examines the travel logs as he continues his laboratory research. They did not traverse space, rather, they traversed time. The clone sphere they brought is identical to the one that paleontologists will discover in the future, and they are still on Earth 4 billion years ago, long before life existed. Steven is excited when he realizes that the sphere fragment he grabbed earlier is the same one he will use to make Amy's bracelet in the future. He then proceeds to write a message on it to teach Amy how to activate the sphere they left behind, ignoring the fact that David's wound is getting worse. Amy shows up at Steven's lab in the present while she tries to deal with the news that the team failed their mission. Steven receives alarming news from Richard suddenly. Ryan has turned off his radio to avoid complaints while he is making explosives to detonate the sphere. Steven asks Richard to reopen the airlock so he can exit, and when he discovers Ryan with the bombs, he begins to explain that they can come up with a better strategy. David, who escaped through the airlock and has gone insane due to the infection, makes him believe the alien has chosen him to help it make things right because humans are a malfunction from the sphere. Their conversation is interrupted by a shot that kills Ryan out of nowhere. David is shot as Steven throws Leona's Rubik's Cube at the wall to distract him, and he runs away wounded. After that, Steven sets off the bomb and goes outside to shoot a flare at the alien to get their attention. Steven leads it to the control room and locks it there, but David fires on him as he runs down the hallway and forces him to hide. Steven manages to quickly shoot the alien away before the alien breaks down the door and approaches him. Steven runs away from the alien, but when he gets back to the control room, he runs into David, who tries to kill him. Steven has a chance to escape the shuttle just before the bomb finally explodes and kills the beast, but his actions are halted when the alien shows up and kills him first. Richard tries to get in touch with anyone alive after Steven falls asleep outside for a few seconds. Steven tells Richard to stay away while he returns to the cave to use the sphere because the storm is too strong for him to come and save him. Amy finds her bracelet once more in the present and finally reads the message. She uses it to activate the sphere as well. Steven rushes to share the vaccine's formula before expressing his love just as the couple's connection ends, bringing them back together in a fusion of past and present. Amy weeps when she realizes that she is now a widow, and Steven dies in the cave from lack of oxygen. Amy is now raising a healthy child many months later as a result of the vaccine that is presently contributing to the improvement of the planet.